Meet David, a brilliant software engineer who earned six figures by age 28. He had everything going for him: intelligence, talent, opportunities. But there was one problem that was destroying his life. Every time he got close to a major breakthrough, he would sabotage himself. When he was about to get promoted to team lead, he missed 3 crucial meetings. When he was close to launching his own startup, he procrastinated until the opportunity disappeared. When he met someone he genuinely loved, he picked fights until they left. David wasn't lazy, stupid, or unlucky. David was unconsciously destroying his own success. Sound familiar? Here's what's terrifying. David's story isn't unique. Research from Dr. Gay Hendricks shows that 95% of people have an unconscious upper limit, a psychological ceiling beyond which they will not allow themselves to succeed. And when they approach that ceiling, they automatically engage in self-sabotaging behaviors. But here's what's even more disturbing. Most people don't even realize they're doing it. They think they're just having bad luck, or that things always go wrong at the worst time. They have no idea that their own unconscious mind is orchestrating their failures. Today I'm going to show you exactly why your mind sabotages your success, how this mechanism developed, and most importantly, how to disable it permanently. Because once you understand the psychology behind self-sabotage, you'll never be its victim again. But first, let me ask you something that might make you uncomfortable. What if your biggest enemy isn't external circumstances, other people, or bad luck? What if your biggest enemy is the part of your mind that you're not even aware of? Before we dive deep into the psychology, I need you to understand something crucial. Self-sabotage isn't a character flaw. It's not a sign of weakness, laziness, or lack of intelligence. Self-sabotage is actually a sophisticated psychological defense mechanism that your mind created to protect you. The problem is, it's protecting you from the wrong things. Let me give you some statistics that will shock you. Dr. Kristin Neff's research at the University of Texas found that 78% of people engage in self-sabotaging behaviors when they're on the verge of achieving something they deeply want. Think about that. Nearly 8 out of 10 people unconsciously destroy their own success. But it gets worse. A study published in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology found that people with higher intelligence are actually more likely to engage in sophisticated forms of self-sabotage. Why? Because intelligent people are better at creating convincing, rational explanations for their self-destructive behaviors. Here's what this means for your life. Every goal you've failed to achieve, every relationship you've ruined, every opportunity you've missed might not have been due to external factors. It might have been your own unconscious mind working against you. Think about your own life for a moment. How many times have you been on the verge of a breakthrough only to have something unexpected derail your progress? How many times have you made decisions that you knew were wrong, but you made them anyway? How many times have you felt like you were fighting against yourself? The cost of self-sabotage isn't just missed opportunities. It's the slow erosion of your self-trust. Every time you sabotage yourself, you prove to your unconscious mind that you can't be trusted with success. This creates a vicious cycle where self-sabotage becomes more frequent and more sophisticated. But here's what's really tragic. Most people spend their entire lives fighting the symptoms of self-sabotage instead of addressing the root cause. They try harder, work longer, use more willpower, but willpower can't overcome unconscious programming. It's like trying to win a war when half your army is secretly working for the enemy. The good news? Once you understand how self-sabotage works at the psychological level, you can dismantle it completely. You can literally reprogram your unconscious mind to support your success instead of undermining it. And that's exactly what we're going to do today. To understand self-sabotage, we need to go back to the beginning. Not just your beginning, but the beginning of psychology itself, because the mechanisms that drive self-sabotage were first identified over a century ago by the father of psychoanalysis, Sigmund Freud. Freud discovered that the human mind operates on three levels: the conscious mind, the pre-conscious mind, and the unconscious mind. The conscious mind is what you're aware of right now, your current thoughts, feelings, and perceptions. The pre-conscious contains information that you can easily bring into consciousness, like your phone number or what you had for breakfast. But the unconscious mind is where the real power lies. It contains all your repressed memories, hidden desires, fears, and most importantly for our discussion today, your survival programming. Freud estimated that the unconscious mind is responsible for about 90% of your behavior. Modern neuroscience has confirmed that this estimate is actually conservative. It's closer to 95%. Now, Freud also identified three components of personality that are constantly in conflict: the id, the ego, and the superego. The id operates on the pleasure principle. It wants what it wants when it wants it, without consideration of consequences. The superego operates on the morality principle. It's your internalized sense of right and wrong, often based on parental and societal programming. The ego operates on the reality principle. It tries to balance the demands of the id and superego while dealing with external reality. Here's where self-sabotage begins. When these three parts of your personality are in conflict, your unconscious mind will always prioritize psychological safety over external success. Let me give you an example. David, the software engineer I mentioned earlier, grew up with a father who constantly criticized successful people as greedy and selfish. His superego internalized the belief that success equals moral corruption. So when David approached success, his superego would activate self-sabotage to prevent him from becoming the kind of person his father despised. But Freud's model, while groundbreaking, was incomplete. It took Carl Jung to identify the deeper mechanism behind self-sabotage, the shadow. Jung discovered that every person has a shadow, the part of their personality that contains all the traits, desires, and impulses that they've rejected or denied about themselves. The shadow isn't evil. It's simply the parts of yourself that you've decided are unacceptable. Here's the crucial insight. Your shadow doesn't disappear when you reject it. It goes underground into your unconscious mind, where it continues to influence your behavior in ways you don't recognize. And one of the shadow's favorite tools is self-sabotage. Let's say you've decided that you're not the type of person who seeks attention. This belief gets stored in your conscious identity, but the desire for recognition doesn't disappear. It gets pushed into your shadow. Now, whenever you're about to achieve something that would bring you recognition, your shadow activates self-sabotage to maintain consistency with your conscious identity. Jung called this psychological compensation. Your unconscious mind will always work to maintain balance, even if that balance is destructive. If your conscious mind moves too far in one direction, your unconscious mind will pull you back in the opposite direction. But modern neuroscience has revealed an even deeper layer to this puzzle. Dr. Joseph Ledoux's research at New York University has shown that emotional memories are stored in a part of the brain called the amygdala, which operates completely below conscious awareness. These emotional memories create what he calls implicit memories, memories that influence your behavior without you being consciously aware of them. Here's how this relates to self-sabotage. Every time you experience pain, rejection, or trauma in connection with success, achievement, or visibility, your amygdala created an implicit memory linking success with danger. Now, whenever you approach success, your amygdala triggers a fear response that manifests as self-sabotaging behavior. Dr. Bessel van der Kolk's groundbreaking research on trauma has shown that these implicit memories can be triggered by situations that are only symbolically similar to the original trauma. So if you were criticized for showing off as a child, your amygdala might trigger self-sabotage whenever you're about to receive recognition as an adult, even though the situations are completely different. This is why rational thinking alone can't overcome self-sabotage. You're not dealing with a logical problem, you're dealing with an emotional survival mechanism that operates below the level of conscious thought. But there's another layer that most people miss in the role of identity in self-sabotage. Dr. Leon Festinger's research on cognitive dissonance shows that humans have a powerful drive to maintain consistency between their beliefs and their behaviors. If you have an unconscious belief that you don't deserve success, your mind will create behaviors that confirm that belief. This is where it gets really sophisticated. Your unconscious mind doesn't just sabotage you randomly, it sabotages you in ways that feel justified and rational. It creates elaborate stories about why you had to make the self-destructive choice. It makes self-sabotage feel like the smart, responsible, or moral thing to do. For example, David didn't consciously think, "I'm going to miss this meeting to sabotage my promotion." Instead, he found himself thinking, "This meeting isn't that important," or "I have more urgent things to do." His unconscious mind created rational-sounding justifications for self-destructive behavior. Dr. Timothy Wilson's research at the University of Virginia has shown that we have virtually no conscious access to the mental processes that drive our behavior. We think we're making conscious, rational decisions, but we're actually being driven by unconscious programs that we're not even aware of. This brings us to the most important insight about self-sabotage. It's not a bug in your psychological system, it's a feature. Your unconscious mind created self-sabotage to protect you from something it perceives as dangerous. The problem is that what was dangerous in your past might not be dangerous in your present, but your unconscious mind doesn't know that. Now that you understand the psychological foundations, let me show you exactly how self-sabotage manifests in real life. There are 7 primary mechanisms that your unconscious mind uses to sabotage your success, and I guarantee you'll recognize at least 3 of them in your own life. Mechanism 1. The perfectionism trap. This is the most sophisticated form of self-sabotage because it disguises itself as a virtue. Perfectionism isn't about having high standards. It's about using impossibly high standards as an excuse to never finish or never start. Dr. Brené Brown's research at the University of Houston has shown that perfectionism is actually a form of armor that protects you from vulnerability, criticism, and shame. But here's the trap. Perfectionism guarantees the very outcomes it's trying to prevent. When you demand perfection, you ensure failure, which confirms your unconscious belief that you're not good enough. Sarah, a talented graphic designer, spent 3 years perfecting her portfolio before applying for her dream job. By the time she felt ready, the position had been filled twice over. Her perfectionism wasn't about quality, it was about avoiding the possibility of rejection. The unconscious logic goes like this. If I never finish, I can never be judged. If I'm never judged, I can never be rejected. If I'm never rejected, I can maintain the fantasy that I could have succeeded if I had tried. Mechanism 2, the procrastination pattern. Procrastination isn't about poor time management or laziness. Dr. Tim Teichel's research at Carleton University has shown that procrastination is an emotion regulation strategy. You procrastinate to avoid negative emotions associated with the task, but you end up creating even more negative emotions through the consequences of procrastination. But here's what most people don't understand. Chronic procrastination is often a form of self-sabotage designed to maintain a specific identity. If you unconsciously believe that you're not the type of person who succeeds, procrastination becomes a way to ensure that belief remains true. Mark, a brilliant writer, would always start his projects with enthusiasm, then procrastinate until he had to rush to meet deadlines. The rushed work was never his best, which confirmed his unconscious belief that he wasn't really talented. His procrastination wasn't about the work, it was about protecting his identity as someone who could have been great if circumstances were different. Mechanism 3. The relationship sabotage. This mechanism targets your connections with others, especially when those relationships could lead to opportunities or support. Dr. John Gottman's research has identified specific behaviors that predict relationship failure with 94% accuracy, and people who engage in relationship sabotage unconsciously use these exact behaviors. The unconscious logic is often, if I push people away before they can reject me, I maintain control over the rejection. Or, if I don't let people get close, they can't discover that I'm not worthy of love. Lisa, a successful entrepreneur, had a pattern of picking fights with mentors and potential business partners just when relationships were deepening. She would find reasons to be offended, create drama, or suddenly become unavailable. Her unconscious mind was protecting her from the vulnerability of being truly seen and potentially rejected. Mechanism 4. The success allergy. This is perhaps the most counterintuitive form of self-sabotage. Some people are literally allergic to success, not because they don't want it, but because success triggers unconscious fears about safety, identity, or belonging. Dr. Gay Hendricks calls this the upper limit problem. Your unconscious mind has a thermostat for how much success, love, or happiness you're allowed to experience. When you exceed that limit, your unconscious mind creates problems to bring you back down to your safe level. James, a talented musician, would always get sick right before important performances. His body was literally rejecting success because his unconscious mind associated visibility with danger. As a child, he had learned that standing out led to criticism and rejection, so his nervous system created physical symptoms to keep him safe from success. Mechanism 5. The imposter syndrome. Spiral. Imposter syndrome isn't just feeling like a fraud. It's actively behaving in ways that make you feel like a fraud. Dr. Pauline Clancy's research shows that people with imposter syndrome engage in specific self-sabotaging behaviors that confirm their fears of being found out. They over-prepare to the point of exhaustion, then perform poorly due to fatigue. They downplay their achievements, ensuring that others don't recognize their competence. They avoid opportunities that would showcase their abilities, then feel like frauds for not being where they should be. The unconscious logic is, if I act like an imposter, then when people treat me like one, it won't hurt as much because I expected it. Mechanism 6. The comparison trap. This mechanism uses other people's success as evidence for why you should give up on your own. Social media has made this form of self-sabotage epidemic. Dr. Leon Festinger's social comparison theory explains that we naturally evaluate ourselves relative to others, but self-saboteurs use comparison as a weapon against themselves. They don't compare their beginning to someone else's beginning, or their middle to someone else's middle. They compare their behind-the-scenes struggles to someone else's highlight reel, then use that comparison as justification for quitting. Rachel, an aspiring photographer, would spend hours scrolling through Instagram, looking at other photographers' work. Instead of feeling inspired, she would feel defeated and convince herself that there was no point in continuing because everyone is so much better. Her comparison wasn't about learning, it was about finding reasons to quit. Mechanism 7. The comfort zone addiction. The final mechanism is the most subtle but perhaps the most powerful. Your unconscious mind becomes addicted to the familiar, even when the familiar is painful. Dr. Robert Maurer's research on Kaizen shows that the brain's amygdala interprets any change, even positive change, as a potential threat. This creates a situation where your unconscious mind will sabotage positive changes to return you to familiar patterns, even if those patterns are destructive. The devil you know feels safer than the angel you don't know. Tom, a middle manager, had multiple opportunities to start his own business, but he would always find reasons why now isn't the right time. His unconscious mind preferred the familiar stress of a job he hated to the unfamiliar stress of entrepreneurship. His self-sabotage wasn't about the business opportunities, it was about maintaining the comfort of familiar misery. Each of these mechanisms serves the same unconscious purpose: to protect you from perceived danger by ensuring that you don't exceed your unconscious limits for success, love, or happiness. The tragedy is that these mechanisms, which may have protected you in the past, are now preventing you from creating the life you actually want. But here's the good news: once you can see these mechanisms clearly, you can begin to dismantle them. Because self-sabotage only works when it operates below the level of conscious awareness. When you shine the light of consciousness on these patterns, they begin to lose their power over you. Now that you understand how self-sabotage works, let me give you the antidote. This isn't about willpower or positive thinking. This is about reprogramming your unconscious mind at the deepest level. The antidote has 3 components, and you need all 3 for it to work permanently. Component 1, shadow integration. Remember Jung's concept of the shadow, the parts of yourself that you've rejected or denied. The first step in overcoming self-sabotage is to reclaim your shadow. You need to identify and integrate the parts of yourself that you've been unconsciously rejecting. Here's a powerful exercise. Think about the qualities you most judge in other people. Write them down. Now here's the uncomfortable truth. You can only judge in others what you've rejected in yourself. Those qualities you judge, they're parts of your shadow. If you judge people who are attention-seeking, you've probably rejected your own desire for recognition. If you judge people who are selfish, you've probably rejected your own need for self-care. If you judge people who are arrogant, you've probably rejected your own confidence. The goal isn't to become these rejected qualities in their extreme form. The goal is to integrate them in healthy ways. You can seek appropriate recognition without being narcissistic. You can take care of yourself without being selfish. You can be confident without being arrogant. When you integrate your shadow, you remove the unconscious conflict that drives self-sabotage. Your unconscious mind no longer needs to sabotage you to maintain psychological balance. Component 2, implicit memory. Healing Remember Doctor. Ledoux's research on implicit memories stored in the amygdala. These emotional memories are what trigger your self-sabotage responses. To heal them, you need to create new emotional experiences that contradict the old programming. This is where most therapy fails. Traditional talk therapy operates at the level of explicit memory, the memories you can consciously recall. But implicit memories can't be healed through talking alone. They need to be healed through experience. Dr. Peter Levine's somatic experiencing work shows that trauma and implicit memories are stored in the body, not just the mind. To heal them, you need to create new somatic experiences that teach your nervous system that success is safe. Here's a practical technique. Identify your self-sabotage trigger. Maybe it's when you're about to receive recognition or when you're close to achieving a goal. Now, instead of avoiding that trigger, you're going to deliberately expose yourself to small doses of it while maintaining a calm, grounded state. If recognition triggers your self-sabotage, start by sharing small wins with trusted friends while focusing on staying calm and grounded. If approaching goals triggers sabotage, practice setting and achieving tiny goals while maintaining emotional equilibrium. You're literally retraining your amygdala to associate success with safety instead of danger. Component 3, identity reconstruction. The final component addresses the deepest level of self-sabotage, your unconscious identity. Remember, your mind will always act in ways that are consistent with your deepest beliefs about who you are. Most people try to change their behaviors without changing their identity. This is why most changes don't last. Your unconscious identity is like a thermostat. It will always pull you back to your set point. To change your identity, you need to understand that identity isn't fixed. It's a story you tell yourself about who you are, and stories can be rewritten. Dr. Dan McAdams's research at Northwestern University shows that people who successfully transform their lives literally rewrite their personal narratives. Here's how to do it. Instead of trying to become someone different, start identifying evidence that you already are who you want to be. If you want to be successful, look for evidence of times when you've already been successful, even in small ways. If you want to be confident, look for evidence of times when you've already been confident. Your unconscious mind doesn't distinguish between big and small evidence. A small success is still success. A moment of confidence is still confidence. As you collect this evidence, your unconscious identity begins to shift. But here's the key. You need to feel the evidence, not just think about it. When you recall a moment of success or confidence, fully experience the emotions associated with it. Let your body remember what it feels like to be successful and confident. Over time, these felt experiences accumulate and create a new unconscious identity. When your unconscious identity changes, self-sabotage becomes unnecessary because there's no longer a conflict between who you are and what you want to achieve. Here's what most people don't understand about self-sabotage. It's not your enemy. It's a misguided protector that's trying to keep you safe based on outdated information. When you understand this, everything changes. Instead of fighting against self-sabotage, you can have a conversation with it. You can thank it for trying to protect you, and then gently update it with new information about what's actually safe and dangerous in your current life. David, the software engineer from our opening story, used these 3 components to completely transform his relationship with success. He integrated his shadow by acknowledging his desire for recognition and status. He healed his implicit memories by gradually exposing himself to success while staying grounded. And he reconstructed his identity by collecting evidence of his worthiness and competence. The result? Within 6 months, he received the promotion he had been sabotaging. Within a year, he successfully launched his startup. Within 2 years, he was in a healthy, committed relationship. The same mind that had been his enemy became his greatest ally. But here's what's really beautiful about this process. When you stop sabotaging yourself, you don't just achieve your goals faster, you achieve them with less effort and more joy. You stop fighting against yourself and start working with yourself. You realize that you were never broken, you were never flawed, you were just operating with outdated programming that was trying to protect you from dangers that no longer exist. The question isn't whether you can overcome self-sabotage. The question is whether you're ready to stop being at war with yourself. Because on the other side of that war is a life where your unconscious mind supports your dreams instead of undermining them. Your unconscious mind is incredibly powerful. It's been running sophisticated programs to sabotage your success. Imagine what could happen if you redirected that same power toward supporting your success instead. The choice is yours. You can continue being your own worst enemy, or you can become your own greatest ally. But now you know the truth. Self-sabotage isn't a life sentence. It's just outdated programming that can be updated. What will you choose to program instead?